I really just want to thank you guys for inviting me, for inviting the church, because, we call this opening prayer, but really it's an invocation. And when we say invocation, it is invoking the Holy Spirit. It's inviting, the Holy Spirit to come in on this. And so I just think with the decisions that are made here, it's like, man, pray to God. You guys are inviting and have. So thank you guys for having us here.
Thank you.
Seeking God's direction. So let's pray. Father, we thank you for another day to call on your name and to know and to feel that you don't wince and say, oh no, it's them again. But you open your arms and say, come unto me, my child. Father, I just thank you. I thank you for these who've chosen to serve you in this capacity. Lord, in Romans 13, the Bible says that you establish the authorities. And Lord, some might say that Paul was talking about the authorities back then, and he was. And I believe he's talking about even now. And so, Lord, I thank you for these who say, yes, we'll serve. So, Lord, now as we've invited you here, we pray, Father, that your Spirit would trouble us in a wonderful way. That as the decisions are made, they're made in light of your righteousness, your goodness, that would benefit all that are involved, our children, our parents, each one. And Lord, just I pray you'll just guide them in a wonderful way. And when it's all said and done today, in the days to come, we can reflect and say, wow, man, Lord. So, Father, we thank you. We praise you. We seek your help. And it's in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank
you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, at this time I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item is review agenda for regular meeting. Ms. Shepherd.
Okay, you should have the agenda there in front of you. We will have a Salem Missionary Baptist Church on Monday night to say the prayer before our meeting. Then we'll have a Morganfield Elementary School student for the Pledge of Allegiance, since they will be providing a site-based report this month. Under recognitions, we have Meg Gatton Scholarship for Vanphy that Abby Wheaton will be sharing more information on. Then we will recognize our academic team, district placers, and regional qualifiers. We had 2 students from the high school and the middle school's whole team advanced. Then number 3 is the Cheers State finalist and national semifinalist. We'll be recognizing them for their competition results there from the semifinals. And then number 4, Bloom Board rank change. Recognizing her Monday night for her completion of that Bloom Board work, and then that also gave her a rank change in advancement. So we'll recognize her that Monday night. We have a superintendent report, attendance report, and then site-based report. And at our superintendent report, we always give Miss Abby Rhodes opportunity to share update. And under our general discussion today, I'll have a little bit for her to share about the health force team. So then if you go on down to our consent items, everything else is standing agenda items. Our consent items, the new ones, will start at number 6 for acceptance of the fiscal year 24 SFCC CAT's second offer of assistance for technology. That'll be $16,081. What that after the 3rd year. Number 7 is approved the declaration of surplus equipment in the transportation department. These would be owed to scrap and declare surplus. Declaration of surplus for technology equipment. These are technology devices that we've been using parts from, and so it's more of recycle and declare surplus of what's left from that. Number 9 is approved declaration of surplus equipment from food service department. And this would be surplus in some of the original equipment that's been replaced from the new grants that Shane's written, and we've shared with you the last couple of months of all the new grants he's received. So the equipment as he's replacing it. Number 10 is donation acceptance in accordance with board policy 4.161 from State Farm, and State Farm has made a donation of $2,000 toward our Frisbee Center at the high school. So that's all we have under regular agenda. Do you have any other questions, comments, concerns? Okay, Amy, do you want to go in detail any more of those? I know I gave the highlight overview of that. I know you also, when we get to general discussion, Amy was gonna give an update on the fire panel too. Is there anything on the standing agenda?
I was just gonna add, I didn't give you this earlier, but, so the offer of assistance, Ms. Shepherd, second offer for this year, our first offer was $21,441. The board approved that in October and escrowed it. So total for this fiscal year is $37,522. And so at the end of 3 years, what we've been typically doing is utilizing grant funds to match those dollars. So we kind of double our money. So we'll turn that $37,522 into over $75,000. And that supports our technology one-to-one plan for student and staff. That's kind of been the intent behind that, to keep that plan going, moving forward.
I think that's all for general, regular.
All right, ready for general discussion?
Okay, first, inform that we'll be advertising for local bids for next school year, and that will be in April. We'll put those bids out. So Amy will advertise this week of spring break and the following week, and those bids will be due April the 18th. Amy, do you want to include what all that might, or share with them what all that might include? Just in case you see that in the newspaper, you'll know these are what we do each year in April for our local bids.
Right, so just provide an opportunity for local businesses to get on a bid list. We always bid it locally, we're not required to, but we like to give them the opportunity for us to do business with them. Maintenance supplies, classroom supplies, office supplies, apparel, sports uniforms, transportation, fuel, so that we can, again, our local vendors can do business with them. So, and I always send that out to the bookkeepers. So if there are businesses, anybody locally they like to see, they invite them, and we'll send the bid packet to them.
Okay, so while Amy's speaking, we'll let her go ahead and give an update on the fire panel too.
Okay, so last month you all approved some BGs and the construction documents for the middle school fire panel. And so I've been working with Markham. I'm not sure if you saw, but in last week's Sturgis News, as well as this week's, there's an ad for that project. So we'll bid 2 consecutive weeks. March 26th, there's a pre-bid meeting for any interested contractors here at Central Office. Bids will be due on Thursday, April 11th. And then when we come together for, on the 18th for the board working session, we hope to have bids to present to you to approve at that meeting, to keep that project moving. Again, it will be summer work, but at least we'll have the bids in place and the work can, details of the work can be planned. So I just wanted to give you an update on that project.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Amy. Okay, so this time we'll turn it over and then let her share a little bit about the health force team.
So, Union County High School has had a really great opportunity. We have had someone reach out to us. Her name is Leanne Tipton. Yes, and I have her information up here if anyone would like to reach out to her. There's also the website. But what she reached out about was Health Force Kentucky has a mobile lab, and
You were telling us something about this
He did.
that he saw.
It sounds like the same.
Sound like the same thing.
Donnie, can you hear us? Was this, did you hear us talking about the mobile unit? Was that the same thing that you saw at KSBA?
It just came back on. I didn't get there when, Libby started talking, I lost it. When
Okay.
she first started.
So we were talking about the health force team and the mobile unit that they provide. Leanne Tipton, who used to be Leanne Moore, she shared that with me and I went to Greg to see it. And there's a lot of great simulations in there. So I wasn't sure if that was what you saw at KSBA or you saw something different, but we are gonna have that mobile unit here. And Amy Nelson and Abby were inviting you all to come over and walk through that at 5 o'clock on Monday night, if you're available, to see that simulation, because it's really enhanced medical experience for the students.
Okay, thanks.
But is it different than what you saw, you think, or not?
Health Force Kentucky.
It was Health Force, team from Health Force Kentucky.
Say again.
It was Health Force Kentucky team. Was that what you saw at KSBA, or did you see something different?
I did.
So it may be the same exact thing, but this is the actual mobile unit is gonna be here on site, so it's really neat. It's amazing how when you walk in there, it's like that whole unit, how it works, but it works kind of like a motorhome, how you have extensions and it's really
It
neat.
sounds like what Donnie described.
But to go and see it, it was unbelievable. So anyways, they're gonna be here Monday, if y'all have a chance and can get here at 5. She's gonna have a private viewing for you all. You can meet Leanne. Do y'all know Leanne? Do you know Leanne too?
Yeah.
She was the brave that
Yeah.
graduated with.
She's
Leanne Moore.
I
We're
heard.
like, most definitely we want Union County, she said, I'll treat you specially, thank you, we appreciate that. So it'll be here, and it'll be a great experience, and this house sought for her students. Another opportunity for them to see. If they could do heart surgeries and all kind of neat things in there. That's wild. So the only other thing we have Mr. Justin Michael Fresh here with Sherman Carter Bernhardt, and he is in charge of, he's our manager for this project for our LAVIC project. And so the LAVIC project includes, it started out as vocational, and then we have our maintenance building to move maintenance out of the vocational building, and then also our multi-purpose building, because we had wrestling within our vocational building. So now we have those buildings included. So we have a maintenance building, we have our CTE building, we have a new barn type building behind it, right? I'm not sure what we call the barn. And then also a new greenhouse, and then we have a multi-purpose building. And remember the multi-purpose building, we were like, let's bid plan A and B. Plan A is what we definitely need. And then plan B would be the extension of that, like 35 yards more of open space, turf or practice facility, right? So we have all that, and he's going to share with you today. I told him just give an update. We were hopeful that we could maybe get our design development done today, but then after the civil engineers came and they looked at our location of where we're wanted to put our multi-purpose building, there was lots of different lines under there, like the sewer lines, communication lines.
Imagine the spider web.
Yeah, spider web lines, electric lines, which we could still do that, but here's what that would happen. Moving the electric poles and working around all that would cause this project to be more expensive than what we need it to be. So we're trying to keep this as low on the expense side as possible. Yes, as far as cost effective, yes, and low on and then also looking at alternatives, like if there were alternatives, like we were putting what we'd like to have in there, but if bids come in high, what alternatives do we have that we could cut and say we don't have to have this?
Right.
So we know going in, we'd rather have the design development stage at the very low end and not having to come back and do a lot of change orders, things like that, because we want it very efficient and effective. So I asked Justin to give you an update of where we are so far, because the drawings inside our vocational building look great, and they include everything the teachers have asked for, and then also our maintenance building, but you can kind of see the design outside and inside, and then he will share more about the plan for looking at alternative locations for the multi-purpose building too. He's going to share from her computer. He's emailed us these documents because we just met.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Sean.
Do I need to join the Google Meet and present, or can Donnie see?
That would probably be best if you would.
Donnie and Ms. Catlett are on Google Meet, So,
I'll get you on that when you get signed in on there.
so then Justin can share with you, some ideas we have for the alternatives of where to locate those buildings to. Not interfere with all those extra lines and things like that. There's a lot of lines on here though. These drawings.
So this first image, you can see, this lower left-hand corner, that's the existing vocational school with the additions that we're planning on the back side of it. You can also see
If you're joined into the Google Meet.
the new greenhouse and the new storage building at the back of that area, and we'll kind of get into some of the details in a minute. But then you can also see the proposed location of the new multi-purpose building and the 2 tennis courts that we're looking at bringing onto campus. So we were hopeful to be able to kind of put the multi-purpose building at the short end of the football field so that it would kind of sit there and be at a prominent location. But you can kind of see, once we got the survey, there's a sanitary sewer line, an underground cable line, a underground electric line. There were overhead transmission lines, just a number of challenges in that area that's forcing us to at least look at and consider alternate locations. So if you'll go to the next slide, Amy. In discussions with our civil engineer this morning and yesterday afternoon, we're looking at a couple of options. One would be, scroll on down to the next one. One would be,
There's a lag, sorry, Justin.
that's all right. This would be one option. We looked at turning the multi-purpose building back. It's basically on the one end of the football practice facility or the football practice field. We know that area is going to be sacred, and we obviously can't give up all that area. But you can see we turned it 90. This allows for a minimum of 50 yards of practice facility there on the left-hand side, and then you can see behind the multi-purpose building. We're also looking at another option that would turn it back 90 degrees and kind of run, basically sit where the lower left-hand corner would kind of stay where it's at, and we turn it 90 degrees and it would overlap where the tennis courts are presently, and then the tennis courts would go over next to the softball fields. So those are kind of the two options that we're pursuing. The biggest thing is obviously we know that we want to do this in the most economical way that we can, and just sitting all of those, displacing all those utilities along with some of the grades that we were going to have to deal with at that location presents a challenge for us, especially from a budgetary perspective. So you can see kind of how a lot of these contours get pretty close in this area as well. The football practice area, if we can, kind of take some of the edge of it and maintain an area that can be used for practice, that area is much flatter, so our site development costs can be minimized as well. So those are the options we're looking at there. I have another meeting scheduled with Alliance, the construction manager, as well as our design team on Friday to continue to think through these options and make sure that we're thinking everything through at the other locations. So this is across the highway at the middle school property. The lower the drive that you see there, existing asphalt that's indicated, is actually the drive that goes back to the bus garage. And this would be the new maintenance building. So it's really the only piece of the puzzle, if you will, that gets displaced across the road. Everything else is right here on the high school campus. So the middle school is directly up above this if you were to zoom out. But just from a site perspective, that's kind of where it's at with some minimal parking. So there's just like five total parking spaces, and then the concrete apron that will kind of allow service access to overhead doors along that maintenance building edge. So, and we'll get into some of the details with that as well. So the biggest portion of our project is obviously the LAVEC renovation of the existing vocational building. We've been working closely with the staff to make sure that we're giving them exactly what they're looking for, and working closely with them about what their equipment needs are, how these spaces continue to develop. So we've been in several meetings with them to make sure that, one, we're not just giving them what they need today, but we're trying to think through what they may need tomorrow. Also, think about how that space compares to what they have today too. So we've had very good meetings with them. And this is the overall plan. If you zoom out just a little bit, Amy, or scroll just a little bit lower out. Yeah, right there. I just wanted to kind of point out in the lower right-hand corner, you can see the new storage building and the new greenhouse. And those help to really start to define an outdoor courtyard and service area that can be used by the ag classrooms. And all that space will be enclosed, and you'll no longer be able to drive through there. So we're rerouting the drive so that that becomes a safe area for students and staff to work in and move back and forth between the storage building, the greenhouse, and the main vocational building. So that'll be a much improved area for students and staff. And then there you can see Amy's kind of pointing out, that isn't a building addition. That, again, we're trying to come out on the backside. It would be really challenging to put an addition between the vocational building and the high school. So we're coming out, growing toward the practice football field. And that is primarily the civil engineering addition. And we'll get into some of those pathways.
There are no major changes from the last drawings, right, then?
Just further development, yeah.
The placement of the greenhouse and placement of the.
Those have
changed.
correct.
Right? Okay.
Those have kind of settled where they've been. So this is the lower level, and really that area one will continue to be football locker area, but we're also moving kind of a health and sports nutrition classroom down there. That will also serve as kind of a wellness area for the football team. There's additional storage along the back, and then that kind of central spine there that you see is really just further development of plumbing that's already there. It's just aged and kind of outdated. So we'll be redoing the showers, the sinks, the toilets, and all the plumbing fixtures, introducing a physical therapy room that will have tables and things that they can use for therapy, as well as introducing a couple small individual toilets up toward the front. On the left-hand side, that's a building addition that will be a vertical circulation. So students and staff, whoever enters the building, will now be able to move vertically from the main level of the building to the lower level, which wasn't possible before. We'll also be looking at bidding an alternate for that elevator that you see there in the lower left-hand corner. So the hope is that we can provide ADA access between those two floors as well without someone having to go outside and around the building. So this is the greenhouse plan, and basically we've worked closely with the ag folks to make sure we're incorporating their comments, but it's roughly 30 by 60. It's comparable to what you see at most high schools that have had new greenhouses. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, Amy, you can kind of see what the outside will look like, as well as some of the features on the inside. You know, the floor in there will be a combination of concrete walkways, primarily for ADA accessibility. We still need to be sure that we're accommodating kids or staff that may be in a wheelchair, but then a lot of compacted DGA or gravel areas as well, especially on the areas that will be used for plants and that type of thing. So the next page there is the storage building that we're putting behind the new vocational building. And it can basically be broken down into three areas. On the left-hand side, you'll see kind of a potting shed area that will be used in support of the greenhouse. The middle area is utilized for storage, and then on the right-hand side is what we're calling an animal science shelter. They do have animals that they bring on site from time to time, and that will be a covered area where they can keep those animals and kind of on a short-term basis. You can kind of see how the exterior of the, so this is basically very similar to what you would see like a Morton building. It's a wood framed building with metal panels and metal roof on the outside. Moving inside the vocational building, this is the renovated ag area. So on the upper portion, you have an ag classroom in the upper right-hand corner. To the left of that, you have a renovated animal science classroom with all the support spaces. In that kind of linear space there at the bottom of your page now, it provides access within the ag suite to those classrooms, but it also is a nice area for students to store their stuff in lockers while they may be doing welding or participating in other kind of lab related activities. And then an office there at the end. Moving down into the rest of the area. So many of these spaces are very similar in size to what they are now. They're just reorganized and better laid out with the equipment. So along the backside, you'll see welding stations. We've identified various pieces of equipment that need to go in there. But then on the right, you'll see tool storage, general storage, and then on the left-hand side, an additional ag classroom, some office area, and additional storage over there as well. So then this is the business classrooms. So there are two business classrooms that you can basically see. The business classrooms have a kind of E shape. So E on the left there and a backwards E on this side. That's the kind of table arrangement, and then countertops that will have computers around the walls. Central, but located between those two classrooms, is a project area, and in working with those two teachers, they would like to utilize this area kind of as a special kind of collaboration type area where they can bring students in and work on projects. It will also include visual access from their office there below, but also an audio booth. I think they record different things and do some of those types of activities within that area as well. And then the additions that we looked at earlier, it's civil engineering. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the large lab, again, with computers around the perimeter, tables in the middle for student use. Then the classroom is on the right-hand side, and the office area is kind of at the top of the page between the classroom and the lab, and again, with windows that provide visual access. Then on the bottom side of the page, you'll see a large storage area, which has access to the outdoors as well, so they can bring stuff directly into that space. And then also a room that can be utilized for laser engraving, I think, and some 3D printing and those types of activities within that room. Then this is the computer classroom, the computer pathway. So it has a computer classroom, then a large computer lab with, again, computers around the perimeter and mobile tables that can be rearranged within the center portion of that space. Office and storage along the top, and then this is immediately adjacent to those business classrooms that you just saw before. So there's some collaboration that occurs there between the teachers that we spoke with as well. Then the final pathway at the vocational building is the health science suite. So on the right-hand side is the classroom. Again, a centrally located office and storage area above that, and then the lab, which includes 10 beds, as well as a large toilet and shower area where they can practice kind of transfer techniques and those types of things that they'll be expected to be tested on, and different certifications that are required there.
On the outside of the vocational building, and if you looked out the window right now, what you would see is over the years, as that building has changed, it's become somewhat of a patchwork quilt. So, our upgrades on the outside will be minimal, but we are looking at, kind of covering some of those areas where we're gonna be making new openings and covering old, storefront and different things where we're taking it out. We're gonna cover that with metal panel to kind of, just kind of refresh the outside, but more importantly, to cover up some of that, brick that we know we won't be able to match exactly and really kind of give it a new look. So the upper, elevation that you see there, the rectangle on the left-hand side is the stair volume that you saw earlier on the end. And then the right-hand side there is that building addition where it's the computer lab and the civil engineering area that kind of extend into that back, what is currently that back parking lot. This is the side, on the bottom side, the side that faces the Board of Education where we're at right now. And you can kind of see, we're taking that brick wall, which already has a few patches in it, and kind of covering it with some new metal panel to, again, give it a little bit of a refreshed look, but to cover up some of the things that we'll be patching and repairing as we go as part of this project. And then, so the upper portion here is the side that faces the high school, and you can kind of see the connecting corridor that goes back to the high school. The kind of hatched areas there are new metal panels, and then in working with Shane and kind of the security requirements, we're keeping all of the new windows that we have up high so that we can limit the amount of kind of interaction you might have with the outdoors and a potential security risk. And then the bottom, you can see we're replacing the overhead doors in the ag area, and that would be that kind of outdoor courtyard space. So it does have some windows that kind of open on to that area from the ag space, but remember that area is completely surrounded with a fence, so it's completely enclosed. Everything on the left is, again, that computer science edition with civil engineering, and then the stair there on the left-hand side. Again, this is the one component that will be moving across the road to near the bus garage. On the left-hand side is a small office area, and then as you move toward the right, a shop area, and then kind of the maintenance service bay, if you will, and then a small technology storage area on the far side. So again, this, much like the storage building that we're doing on this campus behind the vocational building, is a pole barn, wood frame construction with metal panels on the sides as cladding as well as on the roof. Looking at the multi-purpose building, so we have two options. Ms. Sheffer talked about that before. The base bid will include the kind of rectangle that you see there, and it will accommodate wrestling, cheer, and dance, as well as provide weight training and restroom and locker room areas that are really, all of these spaces are necessitated by the renovation of the vocational building and the fact that we need to move those activities so that we can renovate the rest of the building for those vocational programs. So in the base bid, you'll see all of those needs accommodated. Then on the add alternate, which is there, a dash box in the next image, you'll actually see what that will look like. That will basically be an indoor practice area that can be utilized for not only football, but for baseball and softball batting cages, as well as archery. Just a number of different activities that can occur in there, as well as even band practice. The rest of the building is primarily the same, with the exception of where in the base bid it will be an exterior wall, but obviously with the practice facility on the right-hand side with the add alternate, should the add alternate be accepted, that area will add some windows and different things that will visually connect the weight training area to the practice area. So this is, just kind of gives you an idea of what the exterior will look like for the base bid. You can see very simple, exterior with brick around the perimeter up to the eave height, for low maintenance. And then extending above that, on the gable ends with metal panel, as part of the middle building package. And then, with the add alternate, you can kind of see the different volume, the higher volume, obviously, for football training and those types of things, we need higher volumes in that space. But then where we have wrestling, cheer, some of those, we're keeping them in a slightly smaller volume, shorter volume, so that we can hopefully, keep, the cost down as far as we can. So you can kind of see how those volumes relate to each other. But again, brick up to about 13 feet, 4 inches, around the perimeter, and then, moving up from there. So, in the last couple, this is just the building section, which gives you, again, good understanding of kind of what those volumes look like within there. You can see even within the cheer volume, cheer and dance, we've got a lot of volume within there so they can do their stunts and those types of things within that space. So I know that had to feel like I just, forced you to drink from a fire hose, but if there's anything that I can, answer today for you, I'm more than happy to do that.
Yeah, the parking, have they checked, that site for pipes and anything
So,
electrical?
We know where all the utilities are running now. It seemed like the bulk of the problem is primarily where we were sitting the multipurpose building. Just all of the utilities that run to the concession stand, the softball field, everything on that side of the field kind of runs through that area. On the opposite side, where we're proposing a possible location for the tennis courts, we are going to look at doing some additional testing over there, probably at least some test pits. Obviously we're not going to have the kind of footings that would be associated with the multi-purpose building, but we also want to make sure that any kind of paving and those types of things that we're doing over there are on good soil. So, we have the road location. We did, I think, some preliminary testing on it, but we'll need to make sure that we've got information for where we're proposing the tennis courts might go.
How much, room is there allowed for parking there?
We'll need to look at that as well. The one thing we've talked about is that loop road that kind of extends from where we were proposing the multipurpose building and kind of around the backside of the football field. We're looking at that as an ad alternate. So, we think it'd be nice to have, and it will help ease congestion, especially coming up on this side of the building and extending around the back. But if we have to get into a situation where we have to cut some costs, that may be one area that we might do that. But we'd always looked at possibly picking up some additional parking spaces over on that side by softball too, and we'll look at that when we kind of put those tennis courts over there to see if maybe we can pick up a few spots.
There's some parking by the football locker, right? I mean, some.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and we had talked about over on that side, maybe picking up a few spots, primarily, like for softball, and I think primarily they use the parking lot below there where a lot of students park, but for, accessibility reasons especially, if we can get folks up on top of the hill closer to the softball field, we were looking at possibly being able to pick up some spots up there as well.
Kind of like we did in the baseball down here, those couple spots behind the bleachers.
Accommodate.
They'd be up behind the softball.
Well, I personally like the idea where the new proposal is better than the old myself.
Okay.
I mean, the old timers always say, you're gonna build something, build it on a hill. I mean, that's a hole down there at the football field.
Well, we would have to add a retaining wall too around all that.
Yeah.
Sure, I mean, you're gonna have a lot of drainage to deal with around that building. I mean,
That's why you get the engineers involved.
I mean, it's a kind of a little wasted space right there, so I understood trying to fit it in there. But I think long-term, being on a hill like that will be better for the structure over time.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
can
and
get the
they-
tennis courts on I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Greg, you're good, go ahead.
In this view, you showed tennis courts, I think 2 courts. Is there more room for future expansion there, or no?
So,
That's the old.
yeah, I think that, yeah, if you go down one page, Amy.
Sorry, I'm trying.
Computer's
Not
not,
slow, it doesn't want to cooperate.
Might want to.
There may be, and it's the one thing that, Ms. Sheffer and I were talking about this morning, is it's kind of the chicken and the egg. Because if you're able to afford the indoor practice facility, then you probably won't need the outdoor football practice area quite as desperately. And you could definitely look at expanding that potentially into additional, tennis court area. But until you know whether or not you get that indoor space, we felt like we need to preserve as much as possible that outdoor football practice area. But you can kind of see there, those contours there on the right-hand side of the tennis courts get pretty tight.
slow.
Yeah, that's what I saw earlier, I
Yeah.
didn't want to interrupt you, but that's why I was wondering if
Yeah.
there was room for more.
Yeah.
Probably not.
So
Probably
is the
not.
corner of that one tennis court, is that in that woods? Is that,
You can kind of see the kind of clouded
Yeah,
area,
it's on the.
so we would be clearing a portion of that. So,
is
and
that a complete drop? I've never been up there, does it drop off?
it looks like it drops
Yes.
off. I haven't been back in there, but it looks
It
like it
does.
drops off pretty fast.
It's about a 30% grade.
And this is a study that we did very quickly this morning, so we can probably scoot the tennis courts even toward the building a little bit in this scenario. But again, we also want to look at rotating that building, where it's at there and kind of look at sitting it, in 90 degrees from where it's positioned there.
Tennis courts over by the.
Mr. Clifton, to bring it to what your point was, if we were to move the tennis courts above the softball field, at behind the visitor side of the football press box, there's room to grow there versus putting it in the spot back there.
So when you were talking about putting the tennis courts down there, it wasn't below the softball field,
No.
it was up above.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
On that point.
It's kind of about, if you think about where that concession stand is over there, the football concession and softball, it's almost behind it. That
So
area.
there's room over there?
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah, it's hard to grasp and think. about,
Right. You don't go to that area much.
You don't,
and
yeah.
stuff.
spend a lot of time there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the inside of the maintenance shops, are they just, will they just have steel on the inside, insulation steel, or?
It'll be a combination of, well, it's kind of a combination, so in the office area, it will actually have some drywall, because for one, we will be heating and cooling that office area.
Okay.
So, from an energy code perspective, we basically have to build kind of a double wall, to make sure we've got everything insulated properly. But then out in the maintenance bays, and even the storage areas, we're basically looking at heating and ventilation out there, so, it'll be a combination of probably, we haven't gotten into specifics, but, the insulation and even a liner panel on the
Yeah,
inside to
so
provide some
figured
protection.
Most of, probably, money wise, the most efficient.
Yeah.
That's what we normally would put a liner panel.
Yeah.
But I'm just getting in my mind how, I didn't know if there was a certain R value you gotta meet out there.
Out there, when we're just heating and ventilation, that's one thing. If we try to cool those areas, that's where we run into additional energy code issues that we have to consider.
So like the bus garage, with the steel building, with the insulation, that just, and I mean, you see the insulation,
You have to be very.
is that not more cost efficient than doing the wood structure?
Not then.
Cause you don't have to really do anything on the inside of it versus,
Right.
other than your offices, but.
Two considerations. One, those components that we're moving are some of the first phases of construction, because we need to kind of get them out of the way so that we can start doing things over here on this site. Some of the metal building packages, just especially here of late, have much longer lead times. So we feel like, the wood package, one, will help expedite that process. Yeah, but two, in talking with Alliance, we felt like that was probably the most cost effective. When you get into longer spans and some different things, those
Right.
metal buildings
Sure.
really make a lot of sense, like we're doing for the multi-purpose building.
Yeah,
It's
you
like
can only
that.
stretch lumber so far.
Yeah.
If, I know I've gotten into it before, and sometimes you would think steel is just crazy higher, but
Yeah.
you're allowed to do a little more with steel sometimes.
Yeah.
But I was just curious if there was a reason why y'all chose, longevity, is there any difference on those?
We did a very similar, building to this in Anderson County, which is in Lawrenceburg, probably close to 20 years ago now, for their maintenance folks, and it's held up well.
And it should, like I said, if you ain't dealing with water and everything,
Right.
you can handle everything. But yeah, I was just curious, cause sometimes you can, I've seen steel buildings come in cheaper sometimes than getting into wood structures, cause.
Yeah.
You can do more with steel, like I said, you can stretch things out further.
Right.
But, yeah. As long as it lasts.
Yeah.
As long as the other one's on, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
But if if you get 30 years out of it, it's somebody else's problem, right?
Let's hope
They
not.
are.
We want as long as possible.
I don't know, she's been here a long time, she might be here another 30.
True. True, she's antique.
I
I
wanna
am
be.
antique. I guarantee you, being on that hill is gonna make a huge difference than, I wouldn't even faint them putting it down in the lower parking lot.
Yeah, 'cause
That'd
that's,
be our luck, we'd had the first
Right.
big flood.
yeah,
I mean,
they
that would-
checked all that.
yeah.
Any other questions, John, for Justin while he's here?
Last question I had is, what Derek lose, or what's he on his football practice field?
Well, we're still looking at everything under there to make sure this is an option, but it would, right now, it's the end zone, we're looking at the end zone, and we'd have to look, we're gonna put flags out there to bring him up to show him, and I feel better myself just seeing it, the flags of where that building would set, and then if it's not as long as it is now, can we extend that practice field in this hill back here? So those are all things that we're looking at, the architects and engineers looking at right now. So when we come in April, we'll have more final plans of, will this work, will it not, but we'll bring Derek up and show him exactly. Because it would
Yeah,
definitely affect us.
I wouldn't mind looking at it myself, if
Right.
y'all are gonna go to extend a flag and then laying it out.
No, that's
Get
what we
an
wanna
idea
do
what the
between
size
now
of
and
it is.
April, so we can see, and then,
April 7th?
no, but between now and April, so we
Oh,
can see
okay.
all that, and then before we come back with final plans, Justin with the architect group would come together, and then all the engineers with Backus with Markham would come together, and then Alliance to say, are we all good? Everybody's heart and mind at peace here, and then do we think we've got everything we can do prior to moving into the construction development part and getting deeper? But yes, when we flag it off, we can have you come look at it too, but we want to have that conversation with Derek to say, here's what possibly could happen, because we don't know it will yet. You don't want everybody get excited and worried about something, but we know our goal is to preserve as much of that practice field as we can. But like you said, if we can get that Plan B approved, if we can keep costs down and have that extra area, they would have another 35 yards out there. And then we have to look at, what's the base of that area look like? Because will it be contact sport or not in there, depending on what type of flooring you put in, what you can afford. So those would be alternates too. Like we'd want to put high contact in there, but then if we can't afford it, we may have to come back and say, this is just not contact sport because they had concussions, things like that. So all of those things have to be discussed even further. But when we go through with Alliance and say, okay, here are all the things that could be considered alternate, if we can't afford it, we can pull it out because we'd rather have something, right, the space for them to practice than the ultimate spot. So,
And I wonder if there's a site somewhere besides the high school within the district that a practice field could be put in, maybe across the road at the middle school.
middle school
campus
You
somewhere.
can, it's just
I know
the,
he likes that spot, I'm sure.
Right,
That's-
right.
that's
and we
ideal.
actually have space, we even talked about that for a tennis court this morning, we were looking at all options, cause we have the land there behind the middle school. There used to be middle school, did their practice back there, so behind the middle school, there's lots of space, and then to the left of it, there was a batting, what do you call it, not a batting cage, but behind it. There, that area, we used to have softball, baseball practice over there too, so there's a lot of space there, Greg, that's already flat that we could consider looking at, because we talked about that with tennis too, it's just, you want it over here, but there's parking's good over there, so we wanna look at all those things, and when you get all of our heads together, as far as the architects, engineer, and construction manager, as far as the budget, it's a lot smoother, and we can all,
Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, to me, you're saving money moving it from
yes.
the football field to this hill. Cause you're not gonna deal with near the groundwork,
Mhm.
drainage work
Right.
up here.
Or the retaining wall. Cause you'd have to put a retaining wall if you put it the other way,
So I
so,
mean,
yeah,
that's a hill with a lot of water that's, and then you're building a
It is.
huge structure, and then a pounding rain, you gotta deal with the rainwater off the
Yes,
roof and the
and
gutter
the
system.
coming down to the
That
football
big
field.
old
So it's, I mean, you know, I'm in my mind thinking, let's do it if that's, you know, they're the ones that make the big bucks, you know, these architects. and engineers.
That's why they're at the table.
Yeah,
that's right.
And we want to go through it and not rush it to say, we just need to check that land under it for the tennis court. We wanna see if we can extend this football field, because we don't know till we mark it. I mean, they know generally, but I wanna see it, and,
Sure.
because we don't use all this football field now when you look depth wise. So, there's a lot still to consider, but we wanna make sure we do it right, and the development and design stage is very important, because the closer you have 100% complete on schematics and things like that, the less change orders you're gonna have later, which would be more cost effective for us. And we don't have millions of dollars. Some districts can just rush through things and do it, and they have lots of money to put toward a project, but we're very limited, because this started out as CTE, right? So we're trying to capitalize on all the dollars we have and minimize the cost. And they've all come together and worked hard on that. And it's interesting, because like with our teachers, we meet, and the architects are like, okay, we'll lay this out and we'll draw it, and then the engineers come in and say, okay, here's why you can have it, or why you can't have it, and then the money guys come in later along, it's like, okay, now here's what we could cut, or here's what we could add, so.
Well, only thing parking is a little bit, like, let's just say if we proceed with the addition and, you know, or let's just say Robert Irvin wants to host a wrestling tournament in that structure, and he's pulling in teams from everywhere, and that's a possibility.
Or camps and things like
Or camps. How can we accommodate parking, you know, is in my mind, like, you know, without somebody walking from Highway 60 to.
Yeah. It would be still, you'd have some parking
Because
there.
parking, I mean, to be honest with you, it's not that great around here.
No, it's not.
I mean, you know, even for a basketball game, I mean,
It's not.
and that's not of our fault, that's just
Right,
from
it's
years
just
ago,
where it
that's the way it
started.
is.
On
but-
64, that building wasn't this big, right? We used to park on the side, and then we have the
Which
fiber optic under there.
We lost some parking with the connector thing, I mean, you know, there was, when I went to school, that's where I parked, was on the football side of.
Right. And see, then they had to put fiber optic in there, now we're not allowed to park over there on
Right,
that side. We
right.
used to park on the hill on that side. So the fiber optic's there, so those are all the
We didn't
things we have
have
to work
preschool.
around. We
Right.
didn't have preschool out here. I feel like it's actually gonna work out better up there, we talked about that, but just a lot of decisions.
Oh,
to
yeah, I
make.
mean, to me, that's, if you want it on this property, that's the best option we have.
And there'll be some parking in front of that building, there's parking where we have preschool parking now, on the side of the vocation building, that'll still be there, and then all this parking up here, parking at central office.
But we're rerouting the road, correct?
It's coming
So it's gonna
behind,
come
yes.
around back to the football field,
Mhm.
you know, like
It'll
a
be
big
right next to the
horseshoe
football
right
field.
through here.
So I could see people parking in this parking.
Well, I just
area.
didn't know, like, some of this, like, their storage office or their maintenance office is now, and is that all gonna be, is that where the greenhouse is going, or is there some space
Yes.
there, it's got some.
Right, that'll all come down, but then we'll have that courtyard for ag when they come out of the vocational building, that'll be courtyard, and then you have the barn and greenhouse, so that'll
So
all
all
be.
that's pretty well taken care of.
Yes. Because they need that space when they pull trailers in there and things like that too. So that'll be taken up, but we'll look at more of that, so if you're saying if we could add more parking to accommodate, that'd be great, but
Well,
I'd like to look.
I'm just trying to get it in my head, like, you know, if you're gonna pull in 350 people in this building, you know, we gotta make sure I mean, I guess you could park here and walk, I mean.
I mean, when they do now for ball games.
Yeah,
They
I mean,
park
yeah, I
around
mean,
the
I've been to a basketball game when we had regions and had to park at
middle
the
school.
middle school and walk
Mhm.
over here, so, I mean, you know.
We've done that for graduation and everything, yes.
But
So,
that's my only thing in my head, is just trying to figure out how we can park, and, but, man, we, like I said, you can park here and just walk, get here early, if you want a good parking spot.
it's tough. And I think most schools running that, if you're remodeling, you have old buildings like 64 Mall, if you have brand new ones, there's a lot of land they
Right.
purchase, but
That's
we
what
actually
would've
have
been
more land
nice.
at the middle school area than we do here.
Would've been nice if you could've made it work by the softball field down there, the girls'
Mhm.
softball field, you had a
All
little
that
parking
parking,
lot
yes.
there.
That was our
would've
first
been-
thought, but then the engineers got by, I was like, the water.
Well, you had to build
Then you
it
have
up
to
real
build it.
high.
Building up there still would probably been easier than here beside it when you look at all the lines, but you always have that issue of water.
For sure, in Kentucky, for sure.
Mhm.
Maybe jumping the gun, maybe a different phase of this process, but you talked about metal coverings on some of the exterior of the existing buildings and the new metal and the brick of the new buildings. Color schemes and color choices, is that later on, or is that y'all
Yeah,
considering that now?
we'll select all those colors as kind of the first part of construction. But I will ask our staff to go ahead and kind of put together a rendering of what the exterior of the vocational building will look like, so that you guys can get it in your heads as well. But I think that'd be good for everybody.
And in the new buildings too.
Okay.
So it'll be brick, Justin, not block, it's actual brick or?
Yeah, on the outside?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I kind of wainscoted up from brick to.
Yeah.
And how tall was the addition part? I heard you say it was 13-foot eve height on the,
It's like 20, I wanna say it's 2510
to the eve,
to the E.
and it's actually got a, look like
It's a
by the
312
drawing,
slope.
I was gonna say, it looked like it's some type of slope. to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got a 312 slope,
So
so by
that,
the time.
you can shoot a basketball in there, I guess.
Oh,
you
yeah.
did. Instead if you, I mean, if you ever pull a basketball goal in there and have a pickup.
Well,
game.
we have cheer in the middle of it too for the high pitch.
Yeah.
That's where their location is.
So the cheer was in the original.
In the
So
smaller
you're
volume.
at 13, so you got 20 feet there probably roughly on the
Yep.
center.
One thing we did when we were looking at
Classic
the
office.
section, we actually moved the offices to the other end, and that's why, because we're at like 13.4 over next to the end. Well, when they're doing stunts and things, they need higher volume.
Right.
So
They need more
those
center.
offices kind of force them into the center of the volume where they got more headroom.
Cool.
So really the position 90 degrees versus the other 90 degrees, it probably wouldn't change anything interior wise, would it?
No.
It's layout.
The only thing, like if we had to do it that way, with it 90 degrees, rotate 90 degrees that way, we would probably look at
Flip it.
mirroring and flipping it.
Okay.
But that's a 5-minute job, task on a computer.
Right.
I think Shane prefers the other way because it basically allows the building to sit in a similar, orientation as to what it was originally, and has better, line of sight from the existing the high school and the vocational building out toward that, especially monitoring the entrance and different things from a security perspective.
And it will also keep the parking away from the football field. The practice field, that is.
Is it too early or is this a good time to, can I get a copy of that? to look
Sure.
at more closely?
Yeah, we can email you, we just worked on it again this morning at 10, so we can email you
That'd be great.
what we shared today, right, Justin?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what you have pulled up, right, Amy, that email?
So
Yeah, I think you sent it, you copied
Is-
Mr. Jackson.
when will we meet again? with them?
April the 18th, the next
Our
working
next-
session.
Our next working session.
Mhm. And at that point, we're hopeful we'll have all the
So,
signed
so
up.
when do we're putting the bids out in early May, right, or is that timeline change?
It probably will change with this. We'll just have to see, everything's kind of a moving target, but design development's the most important. We want to get it right
Right,
as far as all the specifics, because we have less changes later. So it could possibly be the next month, because we were gonna do today, now it'll be April. So I would think.
so our
we'll-
next meeting will be,
the final stages of all this design development. And where it's laid out, all the schematics. And then Alliance will start looking at tell me if I'm wrong, just in
No, well,
budgets
from
as
that
far as
point-
construction development.
Correct, because at that point, Alliance will have a handle on all the anticipated costs. You know, we shouldn't have unknowns, we definitely won't still be moving buildings around and that kind of thing. So we'll understand all the costs. There's also, we're looking at whether or not we have to provide a sprinkler system in the multipurpose building, which is gonna be a big impact to our costs, because we're not sure there's adequate, water pressure. So we may, that if that's required, we may have to run all the way back to Highway 60 to pick up the water. So we're trying to avoid that if possible. So my staff's looking at some possible alternatives there. We may even pursue a waiver, with HPC.
What's the criteria on a sprinkler system?
So it's basically, size constraint on the size of the building. One, we normally have them reviewed as assembly occupancy because we do it as education. Now we have to have a storm shelter, which would be a whole different ball of wax. So, A3 is what we typically, use, but then that has its own challenges as well. So, typically you're limited to so much area. I think we're good with the base bid, but obviously with the add alternate, we don't want to run into a bunch of additional expenses that make that piece so expensive that we can't afford it too.
So next April 18th, y'all kind of have a number
Yes.
in mind? Okay.
Yeah.
How often does y'all's number when you throw it out for bids? I mean, is it,
We've been working frequently with Alliance on a number of projects and their
their bids are
information.
coming in as contractors provide?
But, and I think that's why you've kind of seen us slow down here a little bit too, because those estimates are only as good as the information you put into.
Right.
Garbage in, garbage out. So we've kind of slowed down to make sure we're all getting all of our information together and giving them as much information as possible so that you guys as a board can make an informed decision based on as accurate information as possible. Sure.
Good deal. Looking forward to April 18th.
Yes, looks good.
Okay, anything else? Abby, any questions? That's a lot to take in, isn't it?
Abby, you didn't ask anything.
I didn't. It's really cool. I wish I was here, would be here to see it.
I know, it's, every year you're like,
Yeah.
this group only gets this year. 2 years, a year for probably get our maintenance started this year and simultaneously start working with multipurpose, and then the next year, the CTE building. So, it'll be here.
Come
Your
back.
children will get to enjoy it. That's what you're gonna think, it's the next generation, it's not about you this time. Any other questions for Justin? Okay, we look
Thank you,
forward to
Justin.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
appreciate
hearing
it.
more from Justin and April.
Great job.
Thank you all for the questions you have, because there are a lot of the same questions we've been rolling around our heads too, so.
I guess if it's okay to continue sending information as you get updated
Yes.
drawings or renderings, or
Right.
this is the way it needs to be, or, you know, whatever. Just keep us in the loop
Yep.
between now and April, that's,
Yes. And like I said, we just
When we get
found out
there.
this morning at 10. that
sure, yeah.
Things changed again, so it's just, when you have that many different people working together, but we'll get that to you all today, as soon as we leave here, what we presented today, and then I think Justin's meeting with the whole team again maybe
On Friday.
Friday, and then we're gonna meet with them again on the 15th, before we come to you on the 18th, and so, hopefully we'll have a whole lot more, the good thing is the vocation building is pretty to go over these schematics that we share with you today, because there's minor things there. I think we're good, other than, you know, when we ran into the lines, haven't changed that.
Well, with existing structure like that, you kind of know what you're up against, but when you're building new construction, you got a whole nother
Well,
deal with drainage, elevation. You start getting into that, them are expenses you don't see.
Well, you have
with the eye
fiber
that-
optic back there too, so you have to just look at a lot of things. So it's good that we're looking at it now though, instead of running to snag later. So that's all I have for general discussion, unless you all have anything else.
You guys have anything?
Donnie, do you happen to have anything else for general discussion before we adjourn?
No, I'm good, I'm looking forward when we get some more firm numbers on what the cost of all this is gonna be.
Right, I agree. That's what we're all looking forward to, and hopefully they come in low.
Yes, I hope so.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.